Clinch in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a subpart of the combat mechanic that is triggered when player and NPC come in close contact. In this video, I would like to show and talk about how Clinch is interesting from a gameplay animator point of view, what were some of the challenges when creating it, and in general cover the Clinch from visual perspective and how the system flows and works. What about me? I'm Lenka, and as animator I own the combat feature for the last 4 years of the development. I directly made and implemented the melee Clinch animations. I really enjoyed bringing Clinch to life, and even though it is not perfect, I would like to show a bit more about how the animations work. Clinch is made out of synchronized animations, meaning that both offender and defender are at the same time playing different animation sequences that were made to work together, behaving like a connected event. For example, when you enter the Clinch and you click left mouse button to attack, you start the attack event which triggers for you to play attack animation as an offender, or in animation we call it lead, and the opponent plays attack animation as defender, or we call it follower. These animation looks different because they serve different purpose, but they work together to create a synchronized action. Based on what kind of weapon you are wielding, different rules will apply. Swords, shields, halberd, or unarmed have different animations or even different rules in Clinch. Here is an example graph of a melee Clinch that applies to swords, blunt weapons and shields. Depending on the weapons or attack choices the player or NPC makes, different animations are selected. For example, if you enter Clinch and just spam left mouse button, you might go through attack 1 and attack 2 under guard 1 if your opponent does not block it. The Clinch for melee weapons begins in something we call a guard. In animation terms, it is an idle animation loop that will repeat until you or the opponent do an action. Longsword and shortsword without shield can transition from this guard to guard 2, a half-sword guard that is also an idle. This transition is triggered by choosing a right direction on the directional crosshair. Guard 2 offers longer attack chain and finishes with my favorite attack animation. From the guard position, either you or the enemy will attack first. You can also back off from the Clinch and not attack at all. From the first attack, the defender can either get hit or block during the quicktime event. Animation-wise, the assets that depend on each other in the quicktime event, like attack to block and block to riposte, are created in a way that allows a seamless synchronization between them. Since the time in which the reaction can happen exists in a range of frames, meaning the time when the blocking gets triggered depends on when you press the button in that time range, it is important that the correct sync of animations can work for the entire range. Therefore, the parts of the animations that overlap needs to be identical in the animation. So in case of block, the first part of the attack animation, let's say 10 frames, must be identical to the first frames of block, so that they can flow into each other seamlessly. In case of successful attack, the offender can choose to either withdraw from continuing or follow up with another attack. Withdrawing from the Clinch triggers a transition animation that will play a weapon-specific sequence that returns you into the main combat stance. We use the sequence instead of just a blend to avoid sliding or clipping and to add believability. In case of successful block of the first attack, the defender can choose to either withdraw from the Clinch and trigger transition animation to return to combat, or follow up with an attack called riposte that will either end the Clinch or can be blocked by the riposte defender. Animation-wise, the riposte and block will again need to be made in a way that would allow a synchronization between them. In attack 2, the defender can either get hit and the Clinch ends there, or there is an option to again block the attack, but this time without the option to execute a riposte. In case a sword transition into guard 2, the same option apply for attack 1 and 2. However, the third attack does not offer an option to block. Only swords can transition into guard 2. For halberd, the rules are a bit bent. Halberd itself cannot attack and Clinch or execute a riposte. It can only get hit or block the attack. Unarmed Clinch differs from the melee Clinch in few aspects. Here is an example of the graph. The initial guard is just 1. However, you can choose the direction of your attack and based on that, a series of events will unfold. Interestingly, you can end up in a stale takedown if you successfully work through the attack zone on the left. However, the rest, like following up with an attack, blocking, and riposts, remain the same. We ended up making 154 animations for the melee clinch, including swords, blunts, and shields, 26 animations for halberd clinch, 40 for variant with torch, which is a modified shield set, and 46 for unarmed animation. This number could have easily been much higher if we went to create a specialized asset for each weapon. Just for the melee clinch it would jump up to 207 animations, and if making specialized asset for weapons versus other weapon, like longswords versus short sword versus blunt shield, this number would add up to over 1000 animation just for the melee clinch, which is almost 8 times more animation. Therefore, the set was created in a way that allows the assets to be shared. It means that longsword, shortsword and blunt shares certain animations like the attack or block. Each pair of assets work together and the animations deviate only if it is at the end of the graph and it returns to the combat. That's all from me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if something was not clear, let me know in the comments and I will try to answer.